Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast, our first off-season broadcast of the year. Kentucky Wildcats got a lot of transfers, a lot of news. It's our first time being able to record any content on the transfer portal. The portal closes tomorrow. Kentucky's roster is really starting to take shape. Jacob, what are you liking about what you've seen Coach Pope do with really his first full transfer portal cycle he's been able to work with?
Yeah, well, first off, missed talking to you, Cam. I feel like we haven't done one of these in about 6 months now by this point. Yeah, from vacation and end of the season, it's nice to kind of just be back in the swing of it. I think it's a very successful transfer portal window for Pope. You're really kind of seeing with the amount of resources that Kentucky basketball has now, and a full season behind Pope, he's really able to kind of get a lot of guys. And there are a lot of people overreacting early in the portal cycle and talking about a whiff here and there, but I think it's just the day and age now that it's hard to decide how good a lot of these guys are, and you kind of just fill out the roster kind of the best you can here and there with player by player. But I think they got a lot of guys that can be instant impact guys, and I think we're going to be one of the deeper teams in the country this year, and that was something that really kind of cost us with a couple injuries towards the end of last year.
Yeah, and I just before we started watching this, I was listening to Jeff Goodman on the Field of 68, and his initial takeaway was, does Kentucky have too many guys, too many players, too many mouths to feed? And we were talking off air as Reds fans, we're used to being the small market team. Used to having a fight against teams like the Dodgers, who's got the infinite salary cap, can do whatever they want. It feels good to be on this side, have a little extra cash to throw around to squander on some of these smaller schools, kind of like Florida, how we're taking some of their guys, Alabama taking one of their guys as well. How does it feel to be on that side of the spectrum as opposed to our lowly Reds?
It's awesome, and if at the end of the year we're talking about our biggest problem was that we had too many players, I think that's a problem I'll take, because honestly you see it like those problems very rarely rear their head during the season and become a big issue. And at the end of the year, you might have some guys you're hoping to come back that'll transfer out because they didn't get the playing time. But if our biggest issue is we got too many guys, I mean, at the end of the day, they're all getting their money, so. There might be guys that are cool with just playing, 6 to 8 minutes a game. And, it's our practices are going to be a war this offseason, I think. And it's going to be exciting to kind of see who in some of these positions kind of comes out on top and earns that starting role and first guy off the bench, because there's, legitimately 10 really good high-level D1 basketball players on this team.
Yeah, and that's as of now. There's still obviously a full another day of the portal. We expect this to be it. Maybe one more addition from the high school ranks with the departure of a Caden Lewis who decommitted last week. Let's just jump into some of these guys that we've gotten in the transfer portal. Obviously, the first one, Cam Williams from Tulane, got a little bit swept under the rug because, we were in the Sweet 16 at the time trying to, push into the NCAA tournament. But 6'8" wing from Tulane, 42% from three. What do you think he brings, and what kind of role do you see him playing coming into this year?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me was it really kind of set the tone, and we saw it throughout the portal of, what Pope and this staff was looking for this time around, right? We're not just looking for guys that, are decent shooters and well-skilled offensively. Pope's offense will make everybody better. So they really prioritized athleticism, and you got a guy that shot 40% from behind the arc and is a freak athlete at 6'8". He's only a sophomore coming into this year. I expect him to play, and I expect him to play quite a bit this year. I think he'll be one of the better defenders on the team, on the perimeter, and with his athleticism, I don't know if he's going to be a starter. Part of this is just so hard to predict. I rember last year I thought Owe would be one of your guys that was eighth man off the bench, and he was your best player. So I'm not gonna fully predict who I think is gonna start and all that, but I think you can see Cam Williams play a really special 3-and-D kind of role. And I know we'll get into some of the other guys, but there's legitimately lineups now that Pope can put in at the end of the game that I think can lock up just about anybody, and that was obviously not something we had a year ago.
Just in easy way to say it. What about just a more athletic, younger version of Ansley Almanor? That same body
Yeah,
style, same ability to knock down threes, and you get him as a sophomore, and he's just a lot more athletic. I mean, we have a lot of
good
wings on
comp.
this team. We're going to mention them a little bit later. Mo Diabate, obviously you got Noah and Colin returning as well. There's going to be a lot. You mentioned it in the offseason. It's going to be tough fighting your way 4 minutes. Cam Williams is going to have to earn some of those minutes. Let's go ahead and transition into Mo Diabate. Steal him from Alabama, Nate Oates. Obviously, we know a little bit about him. They had him guarding Ortega, and that was Ortega's worst games of the year were when Mo Diabate
Yep.
was guarding him. Go ahead and tell me what you thought about that addition, picking him up from Alabama.
Yeah, I think we saw everything we kind of needed to see in that game, at Alabama when he played, to your point, on Oweh and held Oweh to his lowest point total of the season and really, really, really shined. I think it also helps, obviously, to steal him from a, in-conference rival. One of the teams you would expect to be competing for the SEC. Here you go, and you get probably their best perimeter defender on a team that didn't play a ton of defense to begin with. And you get their best player, well, not their best player, but their best defender. And I think he just kind of brings a toughness that we were missing last year. We talked about it at times, there were certain guys, whether it be Oweh or whoever else, like if they weren't playing well offensively, the defense would kind of drag their feet. Well, this is another guy that you can roll out there and play a really, really good defensive lineup. And, I think he's just going to bring a level of toughness and fight that these guys, like, hey, you're going to have to rebound. You're going to have to fight through screens and play hard.
Yeah, and if I had to guess, Mo Diabate will be one of the starters on this team. I can't imagine him coming from Alabama over to Kentucky to not start with this lineup. Shot 46% from three last year. Hell of an athlete. Sky's up for rebounds. 6 rebounds at only 6'7". I mean, him and Cam Williams are going to have to fight for time. Obviously, Cam played at Tulane. Competition not as good as it was in the SEC, obviously, this year. This SEC was phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to see what you get out of Mo Diabate's junior year.
Yeah, I agree completely. And, the rebounding, I think, is just another huge component of it. We're going to have a lot of guys. You saw it with Oweh last year, too. Like, pretty much our 2 through 5, I think we're going to have a lot of really good rebounders on the floor all at once.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to play above the rim. We just had nobody last year that could play above the rim, and that was something that we were not used to. We've been used to playing above the rim, getting a lot of these guys in there that are able to do that. And sometimes, that athleticism can cover up for things, not being able to box out, not being in the right place. Athleticism can cover up a lot on a basketball court. And speaking to that, I mean, when you talk about athleticism, a 17-year-old that committed to Kentucky when he was 16 under John Calipari, almost came to Kentucky even when Mark Pope was hired. Jaden Quaintance, unfortunately coming off the torn ACL, his freshman year at Arizona State, 9.4 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks per game, one of the highest block shot rates in college basketball this season. How excited are you to get that potential lottery pick, the potential top 5 pick, and, that elite? I mean, let's just call it how it is. He should still be a freshman coming in.
Yep.
How much are you looking forward to getting Jaden on the floor when he is finally healthy?
Yeah, not only that, he would be a very young freshman coming in now. And like this guy has played a full, well, I mean, until he got hurt, but a full season almost of college basketball and was a elite defender. Obviously he's still got some stuff to work on. There you see the flashes offensively with him, but I'm as excited as with him as anybody on this roster. Like right now, multiple, NBA drafts for that following year have him projected to go 5 or 6, somewhere in that range. Like it's a level of athleticism that we didn't have last year. Honestly, you can maybe even make the argument that a couple years prior before we really kind of seen a talent like this. And I'm ecstatic to see him, and I'm happy to have him back. And this one, when I was on vacation, got me as excited as anything in a while. And I think he's going to flourish offensively in Pope's system. I mean, he's going to have a chance to catch a ton of lobs. He's shown that if he's open, he can knock down an outside jumper. So kind of like that Brandon Garrison role. I think he's going to find himself 2 or 3 open looks a game, and if he can make 1 or 2 of them, you're ecstatic. And I think he's going to really fit this system. And I have my fingers crossed. He's saying he thinks he's going to be ready to play full contact by like September and be ready to go for the first game. If that's the case, like I think he's going to be one of the best, freshmen in college. Well, now sophomore, but he'll be one of those best players heading into the NBA draft in June.
Yeah, he doesn't turn 18 until July 11th. So, I mean, we still have 3 months until this guy finally turns 18. A full season of college basketball under his belt. And something I'm looking forward to, you and I both know how much I love Damari Williams on this team, is just having a little bit of a better athlete, a guy who can, like you mentioned, stretch the floor a little bit more. You obviously didn't see Jaden shoot from a high volume or a good clip this year at Arizona State, but he's got the ability to, in a full off season, after he gets done with rehab, of working on that jump shot, knowing he's going to play in a system that allows him to be more of a playmaker, show off that unique skill set that he has. I'm so excited to see what he does this year. Hopefully the rehab goes well, like you mentioned. He's hoping to be back by September. I would say to, pump the brakes on that one maybe a little bit. Hopefully, just as long as he's good for the start of SEC play and he can play 100% by then, I think that's what we should look for.
Yeah, I agree. But, I mean, if he is ready to go, like, watch out. And just another guy, like, it feels so weird to be talking about defense, but, I mean, the first 3 guys we've mentioned here, like,
yeah,
you can, if you played the 3 of them on the floor together at the same time, like, you can put together a extremely scary defense to go against anybody.
Yeah, and I mean, you saw the defense actually really did take a step up under Pope at the end of the year.
Yep.
But just getting a full year of, getting those legs on you, being able to play fast pace like that, I mean, it really does help once you get towards the end of the year. You start to wear teams out. Somebody who's used to, that up-paced tempo didn't really help them win the game against Houston in the national championship. Just stole them away from Florida earlier this afternoon. Denzel Aberdeen, the 6'5" combo guard. 7 points per game on 35% shooting from 3. Obviously, this one is still fresh for us. Haven't been able to watch too much outside of the games we've watched, just Florida. But what are your thoughts on that addition?
I mean, it's another, I think, really good sign or commitment, and it's another one just like Diabate, where you're getting it from an SEC rival. I mean, this team just won the national championship, and he was kind of penciled in Gainesville to come back and be the starting 2 guard, and you're able to go and steal him, and maybe he'll start here, maybe he'll come off the bench, we'll kind of see, but like you're able to come in and steal him. He's another solid athlete, and he averaged 7 a game. I think I saw there was 5 games he started this year, and those games he averaged over 14 through those 5. So like when he kind of gets the minutes, he's able to, I think, be a really solid player. And to be the 6th man on a national championship team, I'm gonna have no problem finding a spot for you on our roster as well. So you just really see it. Like we really struggled obviously last year against athletic teams that could score. Alabama, Auburn, list goes on. But Pope is really kind of envisioned just having a much better athletic team this year that, I think he's still going to find ways that they can go out there and score high 80s, and you're kind of seeing that as this roster comes together.
Yeah, and the thing I kind of like about Denzel the most is that ability to, I mean, he was kind of in a system like Pope's, get up and down the floor, shoot a lot of shots, shoot a lot of threes, and he's going to be a senior, so you'd expect him to take a step forward, be able to build on what he did last year. And he scored 8 points per game in under 20 minutes that he was getting. Obviously, we all know Walter Clayton and what he just did in March Madness and how good he was. I mean, he was his backup. Obviously, there's no shame in backing up Walter Clayton. He's going to be an NBA draft pick this year. I'm looking forward to it. I really like the addition. Obviously, Rylan Griffin no longer considering Kentucky after that, canceled his visit that he was scheduled to have tomorrow. I mean, if you had to pick one of the 2, obviously, you can't really just throw them up in the air and pick one from the hat. Who would you have preferred between the 2?
I'm going to say Aberdeen because he's here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Rylan Griffin obviously.
Out of that question right there.
Yeah, Rylan Griffin had a pretty poor year at Kansas. I think everybody would admit, but you see how good he can be in the right kind of offense with what he did at Alabama. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pick Aberdeen. He's here, so I'm gonna take the Homer view and say that Aberdeen's the one I wanted all along.
Yeah, I put you on the spot there. We did not talk about that pre-recording, so I saw the panic in your
Yeah.
eyes when I asked. Speaking of,
I stopped thinking about Rylan Griffin once he said he wasn't visiting, so
I'm right there with you. Obviously, Kansas really struggled this year. I mean, he was a part of that. Didn't have as good of a year as he thought as well. I mean, another team who really struggled, Pittsburgh Panthers.
yeah.
Terrible year. You did get an all ACC player from them, Jalen Lowe. He's going to be a junior coming in this year. 16.8 points per game. Fast, athletic guard. What are you looking forward to him most? Because we've talked about this a little off air. I have some reservations about the pickup. I know you really like him, so let's dive into it a little bit.
Yeah, I really like him, and I think he's the perfect fit for Mark Pope's system. I know, like, the percentages aren't great when you look at his shooting numbers. I've seen a lot of people, pit reporters and writers, and they're talking about, like, he's a better shooter than his numbers are going to indicate. Like, that team is so bad. If you watch their games, there's multiple times where a shot clock's running out and he's got to force something, and, probably sometimes he even forced it within the offense just because they didn't have anything else. I know the ACC wasn't great this year, but he's still an all-conference level player. He's an athlete, another very, very athletic player. And I think getting open shots in Pope's system, he's going to find a way to knock them down. And the point guard's going to get open looks. You look at it, Lamont Butler is not the greatest shooter in the world, but Pope found a way to get him 5 or 6 wide open looks every single game. If you go out there and make half of those, people are going to look at you as a much better shooter than maybe you even are. And I just think in Pope's system, he's going to fit perfectly, and I think it's a really good addition. And then him having 2 years of eligibility, if you can kind of retain him for that next year, I think you love the idea of having him possibly be your starting point guard for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, that is the one thing I like about this. It does give him the opportunity to grow. Could have 2 years at the university. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit. I mean, Trace and Eagle's staff lasted on South Carolina's roster for 2 weeks, so you really never know like who's going to stay for how long
Sure.
they're going to stay. So you don't really want to count anything before it happens. The only thing that I hear you, the shooting can get better. Lamont's got better this year as well. I really like the speed that he's going to bring to this team, especially with the athleticism that we're going to get involved at. I just always get a little hesitant when you take the best player from a bad team because they usually are worried about their shot numbers that they get. They're going to get up a lot of shots. And the same things I mentioned about Ortega towards the end of the year last year, where it felt like the offense had to go through him, and we really just got out of the flow of the offense. That's where my big reservation is. Obviously, going to have to watch him play a little bit more before the season starts. But hopefully you're right. Hopefully that 3-point percentage takes a giant leap forward because we can't have him shooting 37% from the field if we're going to be a good offense.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it's obviously a different regime and different coaches, but I mean, it was former UK players that got him here, and if anybody knows about kind of taking a backseat role, it's both of the Harrison twins, playing with, probably the best team that's ever played here in Kentucky, and like if they're recruiting him here, I think they can kind of tell him like, hey, you're going to be there with 5 other, on the floor all times with 4 other really, really good players. And, if he comes in and buys in, which I don't have any reason to believe he won't, we'll see. And I think he'll be the perfect fit just kind of on paper.
Yeah, and do you think with the addition of Jalen Lowe, this is what led to the departure of a Caden Lewis? Because that was my thinking in this. I think Caden assumed, they would go after a senior guard, a guy who has like 1 year of eligibility while he learns under that, is the guy to take over the next year. Do you have any, thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it probably played a, part in it. I mean, everything you hear it was almost more of a mutual kind of stepping away. Like, I think for a Caden, there's a really good opportunity out there, I haven't followed it much since he kind of decommitted, but the early reports were all North Carolina. And think about it, if he can go make double the money he was going to make here and be told he's going to be a starter from day one that he steps on campus because they're not going to be very good, like, it makes sense for him, right? And I think when you're Pope and you're looking at it, and you can take that money and give it to a Denzel Aberdeen, like it makes sense for you as well. So I just think it was kind of one of those things, like, hey, we'll shake hands, no hard feelings, like it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, like, let's be real, if Caden Lewis was on this team with this exact roster, like, does he see the floor very much next year? I don't think so. So I mean, he would almost have to want to chill and wait till his next year. And like now with the portal, why would you? You might as well go somewhere where you can go play a lot. And then if you want to, as you get better and progress, you can always transfer to a more of a contender down the line.
Yeah. And, to your thing of no hard feelings, mutually split ways. I mean, that's got to be a thing in the transfer portal now. You can't leave on bad terms. I mean, this guy could go out and score 15 a game at North Carolina, and all of a sudden he inserts a portal next year, and you really want to have him back. So keeping doors open like that, I think you see it a lot.
Well, Jaden Quinton. I mean, just look at that. Like
Mark Pope could have been, severed ties right then and there, but no, kept in contact, and now here Jaden Quinton says going to be back in the Kentucky Blue. I was going to mention the Hardly Gilmore aspect. Went to Nebraska, there, come back. Sometimes you got to leave those doors open. Wandale Robinson, Nebraska as well, comes back. I mean, there's lots of examples of stuff like that. The guy that I think you and I probably know the most about, Andrea Jelovic.
Oh yeah,
from Croatia.
Big, Croatian basketball fans here.
We just grind the ABA film. That's our Saturday night. Have a couple of brewskis, grind the ABA film. What are you thinking of the 6'11" Croatian?
Yeah, I'm not going to say a for sure bet on it, but there might have been a night at 2 a.m. when there's nothing else on. You might have been able to flip it on. Yeah, I'm not going to BS you here. Like I know very little about him other than what I've seen on Twitter. It looks like obviously a really good shooter. The exciting part for him is that he's 20 and he's a freshman on this team. He's played against grown men, and I know kind of everybody in college basketball as it gets older and older, like you're not playing against just all 19-year-olds anymore. But like this isn't a kid that's been playing against high school competition for the last 2 years. Like he's been playing against 30, 35-year-old men that are holding on and playing for their livelihoods, right? And playing to feed their families. So like again, I don't know a ton about him. It sounds like he's got kind of a toughness to him, and he's a really good shooter. So I've seen some of the guys that follow the international basketball for like the NBA wise say that they're really excited to kind of see what he can do at this level, and they think he'll be an NBA player one day. So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have him here.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just for depth, even if it's just to, get him out here and, see what he does. Obviously, we're going to touch on a little bit later, but BG is returning. I know I saw you doing cartwheels out in the TQL parking lot when that news was announced, so that was good to see. But, I mean, Jelovic, he's got the ability to stretch the floor. And he averaged 10.6 points per game and 7.4 rebounds in a professional league. I think that does say a little bit as well. He's going to be 21 by the time he laces it up for the Cats. A 21-year-old freshman and an 18-year-old sophomore make college basketball make any sense to me because I really just don't get
it. Yeah, I can't follow it. Like we were talking off air. You had kids that graduated in 21 that are now out of eligibility, and then you got Chad Baker Mazzaro who graduated in 2018, and he's going and playing somewhere next year. Like it is absolute just absurdity going on in college basketball.
Yeah, I really just didn't know.
You brought him up. You ready?
I'm not that far off the Chad Baker Mazzaro age. I mean, at this point, I'm 26. He's going to be 26 his last year. I'm not going to say I could provide good minutes off the bench, but if you need just a spot up shooter, I mean, I might have you there.
I just told you next week I'm turning 28, and it's like the first time in my life it's really kind of hit me that I'm almost 30, and I'm kind of panicking a little bit. But you know what? I think I could probably find a couple of years eligibility, and the NCAA would let me go out there and lace them up with just how absurd everything is right now.
Yeah, I mean, we might have to go down to Indianapolis and go into the NCAA headquarters and see what kind of eligibility we got left. See if we can dive into some money.
Just look at it on the football side. We got a guy that's going to play quarterback here that's in his 7th year.
I mean, he's still not to the Chad Baker Mazzaro age. He'll be 25 when he laces it up for the Cats. So
that's true.
I mean, nobody's doing it quite like Chad Baker Mazzaro. Auburn fans are a little frustrated with him. Supposedly he backed out of a signed deal that he had to go back there. We won't dive into that. Bruce Pearl can worry about that.
I don't know how they gave him a signed deal. I mean, what was the signed deal to like join the athletic department after and update his LinkedIn and have an actual job? I mean, what is going on here?
We're just going to post him on a job board and, help him get out into the real world. And he took it as I was getting my 15th year of eligibility. Yeah. Cool. All right. Enough of the transfer portal. That's all we've got to date. It closes tomorrow, so everybody's got to enter the portal by tomorrow. I wouldn't assume the Cats are still really looking at anybody unless somebody were to jump in that, really just shakes up the roster that Pope really thinks he needs and will fit this team. Only 2 freshmen now with the departure of Caden Lewis, Jasper Johnston and Malachi Moreno. 2 Kentucky homegrown kids. Obviously, we know them pretty well. They've been locked in to the Cats for quite some time. Just give me your overall thoughts on the 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously expect Jasper to play a little bit, being a top 20 recruit, playing in overtime elite, being one of the best players there against, really good talent. Like the guy is obviously skilled enough. Malachi, I don't have a ton of expectations for next year. With JQ hurt, there might be some times early in the year where he's kind of getting some run. I could see that as kind of a depth piece. But yeah, I'm kind of looking at him more towards the future, kind of like we had Trent Noah and Travis Perry this year. Like, if late in the year, if he's playing, it could be because there may be some things that kind of went off the rails that you're not hoping for. But who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. I mean, all the reports were he played really well, all the McDonald's practices and kind of dominated. So maybe he's further along than I expect, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I hope Malachi's kind of here for the long haul, and we'll stay for a couple years.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on Malachi. Hoping, he does get his minutes during the season, but it is kind of like that, what you and I wanted from Brandon Garrison's role this year, which was like 5 spot minutes when you need it. You need the big. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the jump that he could take. The level of competition he's playing in the state of Kentucky, obviously, it's not really a big secret, is not great. But hearing the rave reviews coming out of the McDonald's All-American game where he played well against obviously some of the biggest competition in the country, it's great to hear. And especially if you got a full offseason of him going against Brandon Garrison, going against Adriza Jelovic, I mean, that's only going to make him better, really speed up to the game. And you heard Trent Noah talk about that towards the end of the season, how much, that full offseason program really helped him get his body in shape and get ready for the speed of the next level, because that is the biggest thing that changes.
Yeah, and then real quick, just kind of to your point, like, these guys are going to have so many opportunities just to get better on a day-to-day, just battling each other in practice. Like, think about every day you're going to have, Cam Williams and going at Otega Owe. Like, it's just there's so many matchups, Jasper Johnston's going to get better going at Aberdeen. Like, Malachi's going to get better going against Brandon Garrison. Like, it's just you really have depth of guys that, are athletes at this, level, not just, no offense to him, Travis Perry. Like, Jasper Johnston's athletic enough to play at this level, and he's going to go against really, really good D1 players every single day in practice. Yeah,
and I think I'm looking forward the most about Jasper is just seeing how much he grows during that time. Obviously, overtime elite, they don't play much defense out in that league. I don't think that's a secret. I think if you watch any of those games, defense is not at a premium down there. So him being able to, play with Mo, play with Jalen, get comfortable with guys that have been in the league and around college basketball for 2, 3, 4 years is going to be such a great learning curve for him to go through. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. Because like you mentioned, it's good to get that athleticism. And he's 6'4", he's a long, lengthy guard. He's got long arms. He's got the ability to score. Obviously, you see that at Overtime Elite. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do in the blue and white. And it was really great to see Pope be able to keep him in state because that was a really hard-fought group.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, and, excited now. You mentioned him. Are we ready to kind of get to the guys that are returning and
not yet,
including my favorite player of all time?
I got one question for you. Adriza Jelovic, are we counting him we can't count him as a transfer portal. So is that just we just count recruit?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, dude. None of this stuff makes sense.
What would you say? I think looking back on it now, I just classify him as a recruit, unless you're talking about him in countries.
But I don't think like On Three and all them have included him in their recruit ranking. So I don't know. Maybe we just call him just our little golden nugget.
Our big Croatian. How about that?
Yeah.
That'll work too. Speaking of guys, coming back, guys we're looking forward to seeing, and we mentioned them already a lot. Brandon Garrison. I will say, for as much as we kind of gave BG a hard time, you did see a little bit of the growth towards the end of the year.
Yep.
The ability to stretch the floor, make a little bit more plays. And the best thing I thought he did all offseason, that video he put back when he decided he was
sweet.
Back, that was a pretty sick video.
Yeah. No, agree completely. Obviously it's no secret. I've been pretty critical of Brandon Garrison. At the same time, I wanted him to come back. I think, he's a guy that with a whole nother off season, he can really take a big step forward. And then once Jaden's healthy, my hope is that, Brandon Garrison's not your starting center and you play Jaden, and then Garrison can give you similar minutes to what he had this year, 14 to maybe 20, kind of depending on the game and, where Jaden is at health-wise. But I just want to see BG just be that energy all the time. Like, I want his motor to run every second he's on the floor. You see how productive it can be in the games where he did bring it. The Oklahomas, there, a handful of other ones. He brought the energy in Louisville and was ready to kind of fight everybody. Like, that's kind of what I want out of him. Like, go out there, just work your ass off, grab a lot of rebounds, and play above the rim. Do what I think can make him really good. And if you're getting that from Brandon Garrison, which again, he's got a whole nother off season, I think he's going to take another step forward. I am excited about having him back.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have him back. And just in Pope's system, and we saw it, we were clamoring for more minutes for Amari, for Andrew Carr. None of these guys are going to play a ton of minutes, especially out of the gate. So just feeling that rotation, having, 3 to 4 bigs that you feel comfortable going to throughout any point in the game is going to be very refreshing, because BG was our third big and our last big this year. And you saw where it reared its ugly head throughout the season, especially when Amari would get in foul trouble or Carr was a little unhealthy, or you just had, like you said, Brandon Garrison with no energy. If BG comes with that energy all off season, and I just need him to read some of the press clippings, I want him to listen to the podcast of you and I when he had like a -20 on the plus minus. Listen to some of that. I mean, coming into the year, he was projected to go what? Mid-second round pick?
42nd.
Go like that. I mean, make your money at Kentucky while you can, but just realize you were a McDonald's All-American. Like, you have the talent to be able to go pro. You are You were the talent on last year's roster. You didn't make enough of it. You're back here to try and prove it again. And I think he's got to prove that on the court in Lexington at the Kraft Center. He's got to prove that when JQ gets healthy, Yelovich comes over. Even Malachi Marino, I think, might push him for minutes. Yep. He's got to be able to come in with that work ethic to be able to just get better day in and day out.
Yeah, you said it perfect. And again, I know I've said it a million times and people are probably tired of me saying it, but like, my frustration with him last year is because I know how talented he is. And, he was this guy on this roster last year that you're like, I could see him playing in the NBA. And it just never came to fruition. And I'm hoping just another offseason and he can take that jump and become that guy that, maybe next year you're talking about him being, a late first, early second round pick. I mean, he's got the talent and the athleticism and the body to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and think about this time last year. If you would have told us Otega Owe is going to be testing the NBA draft waters, we would have been like, no chance. I mean, and this is a guy who actually has the pedigree, has the size and the ability to do that. Just takes him the ability to lock in for a full off season and play with that energy. Somebody really played with that energy, I mean, all year really, when he got his time to shine. Trent Noah has already said he's coming back for his sophomore year. I'm honestly probably going to be expecting less from Trent Noah than I expected last year. I think last year he gave us more than we could have ever anticipated. And I think he was actually really good in his role. He was thrust forward into a spot where I don't think any of us saw him being. Did well with it. Full off season of getting his body right. I think Trent Noah is one of those guys that you look forward to in his junior and senior year being able to give you a little bit more than that Ansley Almanor role, but something to that nature.
Yeah, and I mean he's another guy that I think will benefit from being at Kentucky. Like, yeah, he may not play a whole lot next year, but you can't convince me that like he's not going to see better talent every day in practice than if he went to, some mid-major and start it right away. And like, if anything, I think this year will kind of get him more ready for that junior and senior year where we really hope he can be kind of a major contributor. I mean, going up against Cam Williams every day and, Diabate and Owe and all these guys, like, he's going to go up against a lot of really, really good players, and I think it'll make him better for the future to be here even without getting a lot of actual game action.
Yeah, and just financially, I don't know if there's any place where Trent Noah is going to be able to make more money off the court than he is at Kentucky. I mean, he's got the nickname the Mountain Mamba. I mean, he's got a lot of things going for him. Obviously, you and I know, being from Kentucky, when the Kentucky kids get in, there's a different electricity inside Rupp Arena. Every shot that goes up, people are sitting on pins and needles, and then that place goes crazy when they do go in. So I think this is the right place for Trent Noah to be. He's obviously committed to coming back here for his sophomore season. So looking forward to see what he can do and, just get into college basketball shape. I'm not sure if he was necessarily in that shape with one off season last year. Speaking of getting into college shape, basketball shape in general, Colin Chandler, 21-year-old sophomore, 18-year-old freshman that we got. I mean, like I said, back to the college basketball statistics again. I'm looking for a big jump from Colin Chandler. Honestly, I'm hoping he really pushes guys like Denzel Aberdeen, Mo Diabate, Cam Williams. I'm really hoping he pushes to steal a lot of these guys' minutes because I do think you started to see the best of Colin Chandler towards the end of the season when he started getting more healthy. I mean, could you have imagined 4 or 5 games into the season me telling you in the NCAA tournament Colin Chandler's pulling up from the March Madness logo? Like, what would you have said at that moment in time?
Oh, I mean, I told you when it was happening, like, there's not a player that I think had a bigger jump than Colin Chandler. I mean, the guy went from being terrified with the basketball in his hand to one of the most confident shooters in the country. But yeah, Colin is a guy that I'm actually really excited for because let's be real, he could have went a lot of places and, kind of been guaranteed to, be one of the early guys off the bench, maybe even started at, a handful of other places. And he feels like he's good enough to come in here and play. And, again, just back to that confidence. Like, I think it's going to be real interesting to kind of see between him and Jasper Johnston, like who can kind of, be one of that first backup point guard, 2 guard or whatever to come off the bench. But he's another guy that I think is going to get a lot better going up against a lot of this experience. But like the fact that he's here and he didn't look to get out really excites me because he knows like he's going to have to fight for minutes here. And, if he continues to kind of progress at the level and rate that he was from beginning of last year until the end, like, I mean, there could be 2 or 3 more jumps that we see by, December out of Colin Chandler. So I'm excited.
Yeah, really looking forward to see what he does during the summer. I mean, at one point in time last year, I was begging sports books to put on like somebody to get picked, just get their pocket cleaned anytime. I was begging any Vegas sports book that was listening to put that as a prop bet, and I was going to take the over on every one. And now you feel really comfortable and excited to see what he can do in his sophomore year. It's going to be tough, like you mentioned. We have so many guards, so many wings on this team with just the sheer depth of guys that we've brought in. Obviously, not knowing the NCAA's future, might be 15 guys and they can all be scholarship. We'll see. I mean, obviously, the jury's still got to decide on that. Guys that we're not sure if they've coming back yet or not, they haven't fully said one way or another. I mean, let's start with Travis Perry. I think we'll have a bigger conversation about Otega Owe. I mean, I've said it before with Travis. If you can find somebody to replace Travis, I am all for it. I'd much rather take a swing on a developmental high school recruit that you think, has athleticism, has the ability to take that next level. Because with Travis Perry at 6'1", he's not going to be able to be a point guard. He hasn't shown that ability to handle the ball like that. And the shooting, I mean, it just wasn't there last year. Obviously, he was under a lot more pressure than you thought he would have been coming into the years. We really didn't expect him to play much. I don't know if Travis is coming back. I would assume he is, even though he hasn't said one way or another. But I think he's probably waiting to see how the transfer portal stacks up.
Yeah, I expect him to come back. If he doesn't, it's going to be one of those, like we've talked about already in this era, like one of those ones you just kind of shake his hand and you hope wherever he ends up, he goes and just absolutely kills it. I still feel like he can play, at an SEC level, probably not this year, in a couple years, but I don't expect anything out of him if he does come back. I kind of think he's, going to play the role that we thought he would play this year before the injuries. So, I mean, it doesn't bother me one way or another if he's on the roster or if he's not, honestly.
Yeah, I think usually when you feel indifferent on a guy returning, I think that kind of speaks volumes to what you expect from him going forward. I just don't know what he can provide you, really, with him being that short at 6'1" and not having the ability to handle the ball and the athleticism.
The athleticism bothers him to be able to score.
Right? Yeah, and it's not going to change at the SEC level. I mean, you see how much better the SEC is getting year in and year out. Obviously, for the story, I kind of hope Travis is back. But if he's looking for playing time and he's looking to, be able to grow his basketball brand, it's probably somewhere other than Kentucky. Switching back to somebody who grew their brand tremendously at the University of Kentucky this year, Otega Oweh just shaved the hair as well. I mean, that's fresh, hot news. I had to make sure I got that out there as well. Might be the first people to touch on that. I don't know. Probably not. There's probably somebody out there who made an entire 30-minute podcast dedicated to it. But Otega Oweh is going to be testing the draft waters as we expected him to. Obviously, if he gets good news, I'm sure if he expects to go in the first round, back into the first round, maybe even early of the second, he might test those waters and hire an agent and go into the NBA draft. But I fully expect Otega Oweh to be back on this roster. I just don't think the jump shot is nearly there enough to go to the NBA, and I don't think that he'll like the news that he gets from NBA scouts and executives.
Yeah, I fully expect him to be back as well. The big thing for me when he put that statement out was that he was testing the NBA and he didn't mention, obviously, like the transfer portal. So you kind of dodge that bullet. It closes tomorrow. So pretty much it's going to be he goes to the NBA or he probably comes back to Kentucky. Something to consider now, like obviously we always judged everything on if you were a first-round pick, you got to go. I don't know if that's the case anymore. Like Otega Oweh could seriously come back and probably make $5 or $6 million next year at Kentucky.
Like, you're gonna make a lot more than you get every other pick in the draft this year.
Yeah, you get a 2-year guaranteed deal in the NBA, but like those contracts at the end of the first round are for like what, $2 million a year for 2 years. Like Otega's gonna make more than that in his one season at Kentucky. I think he's going and doing this to figure out what do I need to do next year so that I can position myself when I'm out of eligibility to try to play in the league and continue my playing career. And I'm sure it's going to be kind of similar to what Jackson Robinson heard the year before. Come back and prove that you can be kind of a elite level shooter. Whether Otega can or not, we'll see. But everything I'm assuming this team has Otega Oweh next year. And if they do, I think this is legitimately a top 5 team coming into the preseason. And I'm extremely excited, and I don't foresee him not being on the roster next year.
Yeah, at the low end, I know we didn't talk about this off air. What would you say is the low end of what Otega Oweh is going to make coming back to Kentucky? Because just looking at the NBA rookie scale from last year, even if you said he got just $3 million, that was equivalent to the 17th overall pick. And I don't think any of us expect Otega Oweh to go 17.
No, I legitimately think he'll make probably between $4 and $6 million next year. I mean, you see kind of what some of these other guys are getting. I think Otega Oweh is Mark Pope's number one priority. I think he prioritized keeping Otega over, a guy like Dent. And you see Dent's getting $4 million. I easily think it'll be $4 million for Otega. And, Jeff Goodman put out today that Kentucky, he thinks, has the deepest pockets in all of college basketball. And he said not even BYU can keep up. So while BYU might be giving a freshman $8 million, Kentucky's giving a lot of guys a lot of money. And I Otega Oweh is not going to come back and not be the highest paid player on this roster. So I'm assuming that they already have a number of, hey, go through the draft. Who knows? Maybe if you get told you're going to be the 15th pick, which I don't foresee happening. I don't think, maybe like, yeah, we'll shake your hand and you can go. But when you get your kind of feedback and you learn what you need to do for next year, here's $5 million waiting for you to come back. And I think I would assume it's pretty much a done deal for him to kind of be back.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on a lot of those points. Liken it a little bit to kind of what Jackson Robinson went through last year, where even though I think Jackson might have been a little bit more up in the air just because he didn't really know. Obviously, he wasn't going back to BYU. He was going to have to follow Coach Pope to Kentucky. I mean, Otega already knows the role that he has on this team. I mean, obviously scored 16-plus points per game last year, leading scorer for the team. And we know what the scouts are going to tell him. He's got to fix that jump shot, the two-part jump shot that he has, where he just shot pretty bad from the field. And the bad thing was he started off pretty well from three early to start the year, and it just gradually got worse throughout the season. Really am looking forward to seeing what would happen, because could you imagine if Otega became not necessarily just like a knockdown three-point shooter, but at least a reliable threat from three where they have to respect it a little bit more?
Oh, I mean, it opens everything up, not only for him. I think just this entire team is better. And then you got a guy like Lowe who's super quick that can get to the rim. And if Otega is able to knock down open shots, it's just, I mean, teams are going to struggle to defend Kentucky if Otega can shoot. One way real quick that like I do think this is different than what Jackson did last year. Remember, Jackson was in the portal. Like, it was kind of assumed he would follow Pope, but there were 3 or 4 other schools that were actively recruiting him.
Yep.
Like, if Otega doesn't hop in the portal, it's pretty much NBA or 100% back to Kentucky. And I just think, again, there's going to already be that number that's going to be discussed, and he's going to know exactly what he's going to make. And, there were reports of another SEC school. A lot of people think it was Auburn offering them like $5 million. So I have to imagine Kentucky's going to give him that, and maybe even then some. But like, he'll make all the NIL, and then he'll be one of the faces of college basketball. He'll be on every preseason Player of the Year award watch. He'll, be talked about as a guy that can maybe play his way into the draft. And I just think there's not a better fit for him out there right now than to be back.
No, and if you're him, outside of, testing the NBA and going and taking that risk, why would you take a risk to go anywhere else? You saw how much of a difference going from Oklahoma to Kentucky made for your career. I mean, if talking about Otega making $4 to $6 million this time last year at Kentucky in NIL money, we would have scoffed at you and just called you crazy. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to give you a little bit of time. I'm going to talk about one news topic before I do it. Give me your starting 5. Think about it for a second. I'm going to come back to you. As the roster is constructed now, assuming Otega and Travis Perry come back, give me your starting 5. I'm going to hit on one topic real quick. Kentucky has reached out to 4-star wing, small forward, 6'8", Braden Hawthorne from Huntington, West Virginia. Recently decommitted from West Virginia as DeVries left to go to Indiana. He was on campus last week. He's a 71st overall player in the 2025 class. I'm not sure what, obviously, with Denzel Aberdeen committing, I'm not sure if that throws a wrench into these plans at all. But I do like that Pope is still looking at the high school ranks. We were obviously in on Nate Ament for a while until he committed to Tennessee yesterday. Same thing with the Duke wing that just followed Jai Lucas to Miami. So it's good to see that Pope isn't necessarily just giving up on these high school guys. Because like you mentioned, a lot of these guys like Colin, you want to see them sit there with you and develop and be able to turn to them when they're sophomores or juniors and they've been able to take that step. So I do like the ability to add Braden Hawthorne if we are able to get him.
All right. So you're putting me on the spot. I think Lowe will be the starting point guard. I'm always obviously, in there at either the 2 or the 3, however you want to look at it. I think Aberdeen will be a starter. Again, obviously he's making more to come here than, Florida, but I think he was going to be obviously penciled in as a starter at Florida. I think he's coming here with the intent to play. You made the point about a Diabate. I kind of like the idea of him playing the 4, and you really kind of stretch people out and play, a little smaller, and then I'll say until Jaden's back, it'll be Brandon Garrison at the 5.
Going with a real small lineup, man, of 6'7" power forward running the 4.
He played the 4 a lot at Alabama last year, so I mean it's definitely doable.
Yep, I agree with you on a lot of that. I think Jalen will start. I'm interested to see what the Jasper Johnston dynamic is. See what he does once he got on there, because I could see him running into possibly being the 2, Ortega at the 3, and like you mentioned, Diabate at the 4. Obviously, in a perfect world with Jaden being healthy, he'd be your slot in 5. And obviously, the wild card in all of this is Yelovich. We really have no idea what to expect from him. He could come in and, tear the place on fire and be like an Enes Kanter type, or he could be like, Eloy Vargas. I mean, it could go either of two ways. I know I just threw some obscure cats there. One didn't even play a game. Didn't think you were going to hear Eloy Vargas or Enes Kanter on today's pod, did you, Jake?
No, I didn't. But real quick, I mean, one point you make, like, Jasper Johnston obviously is the X factor. Like, if he comes, he could be as good as, anybody on this roster. And, there is a world where, he's your starting too. One last quick point I'll make before we hop off here. The thing about how kind of Pope built this roster that I love is how many different styles we can play. I mentioned my starting lineup that's, kind of obviously more small ball, but you could also play a big lineup. You could put Diabate in at the 3, and there's so many different. We've talked about he's got these defensive lineups, and you could play Cam Williams at the 3, who's 6'8", next to Owe, or even Diabate and Cam Williams at the same time with one of the 4s and Brandon Garrison or Jaden. Like, there's so many different styles for whatever kind of game you need, whatever 5-minute stretch you need. Pope will really be able to plug and play, and I think that's very exciting compared to last year, where you were just you didn't really have a ton of defense. You were kind of left with, you put your 5 best scorers on the floor and kind of hope. And I think there's just so many ways he can mix and match with this upcoming roster.
Yeah, the different lineups that you can just, even you and I going back and forth, can mention of what he can do in certain moments and certain times. I mean, you could look at a lineup where Mo Diabate is running at the 2 at some point. I mean, the guy shot 46%. Obviously put the clamps on Ortega Owe, who was our best athlete last year. I mean, you could realistically look at a spot where Mo is playing the 2 in certain stretches throughout the season. So excited. Look forward to it. Anything you got before we sign off? Obviously, we'll keep you guys updated on the transfer portal if anything is still to happen.
No, well, here, I'll make you, we'll maybe get you excited one more lineup. Imagine it's, a possession left in the game you need to stop, and you can go, Ortega Owe, Cam Williams, Diabate, maybe even put Jaden at the 4 and Brandon Garrison for one final possession. Like, you think teams are going to have an easy time getting a shot off against that lineup?
I mean, the easiest shot might be on PG, unfortunately, to say it enough. But
I mean, we've seen at times he can go out there and make a play. So yeah. I just think there's a lot of exciting possibilities. So, I mean, unfortunately, we have to suffer through a football season before I can get into November basketball. So, yeah, well, we can dive into that later. But
well, I just had a great 50 minutes on this podcast, and you wanted to throw out the football team at the very end to ruin my entire.
Dude, I'm ready for November. Like, I don't want to say I want to skip my whole fall and just jump straight into November, but I think I'm ready to skip September and October this year.
Just give me one fall Saturday afternoon in England, and I'll be good.
That's true.
This Kentucky basketball season, it's gonna be so much fun. You just mentioned the different lineups that we can bring, the level of seniority we're bringing with some of these guys, the shooters that we have, the unknowns that we have with the 2 freshmen coming in, and the big Croatian. This is going to be a fun season. We've got a long time until it starts. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm ready to start picking it up here soon if we could. But obviously, any transfer portal news, any news on Braden Hawthorne, any news that we have, we'll be here recording a podcast on it. Go Big Blue. Let's do it.
Go Big Blue.